Hi, I'm Lisa Bardot, and today we're going to be doing a watercolor painting of this fun pickle in Procreate. In this quick, simple tutorial, you create a shape and add details to create a wet-on-wet watercolor look. We'll also be adding some lighting effects, including shading, highlights, and a drop shadow. For this tutorial, we're going to be using brushes from my Watercolor Wonder brush set for Procreate. It's a set of 50 realistic brushes and 5 textured canvases for joyful digital watercolor painting. If this is your first time using this set, I recommend watching my Watercolor in Procreate tutorial to get you familiar with the different brushes and the best ways to use them. That video will also give you a bunch of great tips to help you get started making authentic looking digital watercolor. You can purchase Watercolor Wonder at bardotbrush.com. And if you're new to Procreate, I would watch my Procreate for Beginners tutorial to get you familiar with the basics. Let's get started. So here I am in the Files app. I'm here under On My iPad, and this is where I have the Watercolor Wonder textured canvases saved. So I'll open that up. And for this pickle painting, I'm going to be using the soft wash canvas. So to open that in Procreate, I can just tap it, and I'm ready to start painting. I plan on making this a horizontally oriented canvas, so I'm just going to start by rotating my canvas like that. So let's start by selecting a brush. We're going to go into our brush library, and we're going to start here in the core set. And the brush I'm going to use is the hard edge round. And then I'm going to go over to my colors, and I'm going to choose a green and then kind of just like a light green color like that. When we're doing watercolor, we want to start with our lightest values and then layer on the dark colors gradually. So I'm going to begin by drawing just a kind of big pickle shape in one continuous stroke. So I'm going to draw kind of a curved oblong shape like this in one continuous stroke and then fill the whole thing in. And I haven't picked up my pencil yet. I'm just doing one continuous stroke. Here we go. And then I'm going to add some little like bumps and nubby shapes along the edges. So I'm just going to go over and add a few of those here and there on the top and bottom. Kind of like that. And if you want to, you can get the blender and kind of blend these in. So you would go over to the brushes, go to the tools set, and I would choose the Precise blender since they're such small areas. So Precise blender, and you can blend those in a little bit if you'd like. Okay. All right, so we've got our initial pickle shape. We're ready to start layering on our darker values to create details. So I'm going to start by just adding a little bit of base shading to this. I'm going to go into my brushes, go into the glazes, and I'm going to choose the hard edge round glaze. This one will have an automatic darkening effect, so it's perfect for adding a little bit of base shading. And then I'm just going to rotate this so it's easier for me. And I'm going to get a little bit darker of a green like that. And then I'm just going to go along this edge. And just make a side of it darker. Don't worry about these little overlapping strokes here. You can blend those. And the reason why I like doing my shading this way by hand is because you get these areas where it doesn't quite overlap or it overlaps a little bit too much. And to me, that just looks more authentically watercolor. So that's why I like to do it that way. I'll do a little bit here. Okay, and now I can come in with my blender. So go into the tools. I'll try the Precise blender and just blend anywhere where there was some overlap. Here. So I'm just worried about the overlap right now. And next I'm going to switch to the water blender to blend this kind of hard edges. So I'm in my tool set. I'm going to choose the water blender. And then I'm just going to blend this kind of hard edge. Okay, so we've got a little bit of base shading to our pickle. And now we're going to use some more of the glaze brushes to add kind of the stripe effect on the pickle, and we're going to create like a wet on wet watercolor look. So let's go into the brushes. I'm going to go back to the glazes, and I'm going to choose the wet on wet liner. And then I'm going to go over to my colors, and I'm going to choose a little bit cooler of a green and a bit darker and more saturated. So I can test out that color. I think that looks good. So my brush size is about 20% or so. And I'm just going to draw a line across my pickle like that. And as you can see, it has this nice bleeding effect, just like you would see in wet on wet watercolor. Now, if we were to draw a stripe close to the edge here, as you can see, it's going over the edge of our shape, and we want it to be within this shape. So you could use Alpha Lock to do that, but I don't always like using Alpha Lock when I'm doing watercolor because, let me just turn off these layers. You can see how transparent the brush is. And so when you use Alpha Lock with a shape that's kind of transparent, it won't reach the full like brightness or saturation of the color you're trying to lay down. So I like to do a little bit different way. So I'll show you what that is. Basically, we're going to go over to our selection tool. You want to make sure you're in automatic selection mode, and we're going to use that to draw a selection or create a selection around our shape here. So I'm going to tap and drag to the left or right to adjust my selection. So if I go too far to the left, it's going to leave too much space around the edge. If I go too far to the right, it'll fill in the whole shape completely. So somewhere around there is perfect. You can lift up. And now we have anything that's in blue is what is currently selected. So we have the area around the shape selected. We want to invert it so that we just have the pickle shape selected. So we just need to tap right here where it says invert. And now you can see we just have the pickle selected. And now I can tap back over to my brushes, and I can now draw within that shape without using Alpha Lock. So that's kind of what the idea is here. So now I can draw my other stripes, kind of following the curve of the pickle shape. Like that. And while I still have this selection active, I'm going to add even more shading to this. So I'm going to go to my brushes, and I'm going to choose I'm still in the glazes set. I'm choosing the Blooming Wash glaze brush. And I think this dark green that I have selected will work just fine. Increase my brush size a little bit. Maybe a little bit too big. And I'm just going to add some shading to the bottom of my pickle. Like that. That looks good. I'm going to go ahead and deselect now by tapping the selection tool. And now I'm going to add a few more of the little nubs here and there. So I'm going to go to my brushes. I'm still in the glazes set, and I'm going to choose the hard edge round brush. And then just add a couple little bumps here and there on my pickle. And then I'm going to go to my tools, and I'm going to choose the Precise Blender and blend the bottom edge of those little bumps. There we go. Kind of blend in the opposite to the curve side of those little marks we just made. All right, we've added all our pickle details. Now it's time to add some highlights. So we're going to go to our layers, and we're going to tap the plus sign to create a new layer. We're going to put these highlights on a new layer. And we're going to go to our brushes now, and we're in the tool set. We're going to use the white gel pen. So this is just like a white gel pen that you would pick up at the store. It's milky, and it's great for adding highlights. And the cool thing about this is no matter what color you have in the color picker, it will always paint in white. So we're going to use that to add some highlights to our pickle to make it look shiny. So I'm going to start with all these little nubs. I'm just going to kind of add a little shiny mark or two to each of them. I'm kind of imagining my light source is coming in from the left. So all my highlights are going to be on that side. So again, like one or two little dots on each. So we'll go around to all the different little bumps, make them all a little shiny. And then we're going to add some more highlights overall to make the whole thing look shiny. Okay, so I think I got all the bumps. And now I'm going to add some shiny marks to the middle kind of the pickle. And for these, I'm just going to do these kind of like groupings of different lengths of dashes. And I'm going to put them here or there on the pickle. And that's just going to make it seem like there's some kind of shiny parts of the pickle. If you're ever not sure like where to put highlights or things like that, it's always helpful to look at a reference photo and work off of that. I'm just kind of making it up. There we go. And it also helps to zoom out so you can really see like if it's working or not, like all these little marks, or where you might need more. Maybe some up here. And depends on just how shiny you want it to look. Maybe I'll do some on this side that are like following the curve of the pickle. All right, maybe I went a little overboard on my highlights, but I think it looks good overall, so I'm going to just go with it. The last finishing touch I want to add is a drop shadow underneath my pickle. So for that, I'm going to go to my layers and I'm going to tap the plus sign to create a new layer. And I'm going to set the blend mode of this layer to multiply. So tap little N and set it to multiply. Setting any new layers of paint to multiply is a good way to make the watercolor effect look even more authentic. So we're going to go now to our colors and I'm going to choose kind of a light gray color. And then I'm going to into my brushes and I am going into the glazes set and I'm going to choose the super soft wash. This will be perfect for adding a shadow. Now, the key to creating authentic looking digital watercolor is to follow a similar workflow that you would for physical paints on paper. So if I wanted to add a shadow to this and it was on paper, I would just paint in the shadow, just touching the edges of my shape without like overlapping it. When you're working with digitally, you don't have to do that because we have layers that, would hide the shadow underneath the pickle. But instead, we're going to use the same selection tool method to just isolate out the area where we're going to have the shadow. So let's go back to the layers. I'm going to select the pickle layer. I'm going to go to my selection tool and this time we're going to do just like before, select the area around the pickle, just like that. We're not going to invert it this time because we're going to be drawing around the pickle. So I'm going to go back to my layers now and go back to that new layer I just created. And now I can zoom out and draw the shadow. So I'm just going to start with one continuous stroke for my first shadow layer. And then I'm going to make a shape a little bit smaller than that, closer to the pickle with another stroke. And then again, a little bit closer. The closer I get to the pickle, the darker I want it to be. So that's why I'm layering these strokes. And if you need to, you can go to your water blender in the tool set and blend it out a little bit. If you need to blend your shadow, make it softer, you can do that. This is looking pretty good, I think. And then one totally optional step is if you wanted this kind of area where the shadow and the pickle touch to look a little more realistic, authentic, and less like digital perfect, you could go into your adjustments menu, liquify, and then just kind of nudge it a little bit. Just kind of make a little bit of the white peek out or make the shadow kind of overlap a little bit more and make it a little bit imperfect. Totally optional, but I think it looks cool. And with that finishing touch, this pickle is all done. I really hope you enjoyed this technique. I like how this piece has that really cool bleeding wet on wet effect to create the stripes of the pickle. Plus we have all the fun highlights and little bumps, and I just think it's a really fun piece. Again, I'm Lisa Bardot, and I help people find their creativity through drawing on the iPad. If you'd like to support me, please check out my premium brushes that inspire creativity, including Watercolor Wonder, at bardotbrush.com. And if you want to take your learning to the next level, you should join Art Makers Club. Art Makers Club is a joy-filled creative community and learning hub for digital art makers. As a member, you'll get access to a growing library of in-depth courses, live virtual events and tutorials, free Procreate brushes, and more. In our community clubhouse, you get to connect with like-minded learning artists, share your work, ask for feedback, participate in discussions, and so much more. Come join us in the club. You can learn more at artmakersclub.com. If you're sharing your work, I would love to see it. Use the hashtag #BardotBrush. Thanks, and happy art making! If you like this video, please subscribe for more awesome tutorials, and check out one of my other videos. Thanks, and have a great day!